Okay, I've already covered that God is love. But God is also holy and righteous. In our Western culture, I'm talking about Europe, America, Canada, we've become profane, and that is like the opposite. That is the opposite of holy. We don't hold anything as sacred. Purity is a joke to most people now. Holy also, if you look up the word, is also means blameless, ceremonially consecrated. And one of the root words that form the Greek word for holy is awful. And I've already covered in the in previous video etymology, the way words change over time. And when we use awful, we think it's bad. It's a bad thing. Well, awful means full of awe. When you come into a presence, people talk about, when I get to heaven, I'm going to ask God about such and such, and why He did it that way, and blah blah. No, I think when you come in the presence of God, it's going to be miraculous if you can speak at all. You're going to just be so awestruck, dumbfounded, that you can't do anything. You're just going to be like, wow, that's it. And I hate the overuse of awesome. Only thing awesome is God. As far as I'm concerned, that's the only thing that really inspires me with awe. When I see a beautiful sunset, I am filled with God's creation, and I am just awe-inspired. And I may go, that is awesome, because of God. It's not it's not because the light is refracted a certain way, and the cloud cover does this, and it ends up with these colors and looks like that. There's so much more to beauty than what can be analyzed. And another root word of the word that's used in the Greek for holy means properly clean, innocent, perfect, pure again. So you have to understand that God is love and God is holy. And what does that all mean? The times that God, Moses wanted to see God. God said, no, you have to go into that cleft, and I have to, you can only see my backside after I pass, or you'll be consumed. You can't even get into His presence. An abundance of His presence in the flesh. Could spontaneous combustion be because someone got into it a little close? I don't know. That's a better explanation for some of the stuff I've heard about it than other things that I've heard. The holiness of God is critical. This is why they made sacrifices, so they can get in the presence. The high priest that got into the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle, in the sanctuary, in the temple, they would have to put a rope on his foot, on his ankle, and he would have bells on his clothing, on his robe, or I'm not sure exactly what if there was a different name for it. He had bells that would jingle as he went into the Holy of Holies and ministered, and he did it once a year after a big ceremony. It was very methodical that he had to do these things before he can go in the Holy of Holies. If the men outside the Holy of Holies couldn't hear the bells tinkling, he was dead. They would use the rope to drag him out because they could not go in there and retrieve him. This was serious. I mean, people, this is God was doing everything He could to get us to Him, and trying to make it easy. And I want to go back to the Garden of Eden in Genesis, the very beginning. God had one simple rule: don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, if you think about it, if Adam and Eve never learned good and evil, what was good and evil, they had an innocence. I think it went beyond that. It wasn't that they could do evil and not know it was evil. It just never occurred to them. It would never occur to them to lie, to cover up something, because they didn't have to cover up anything. It goes beyond what we think of as innocence. Can you imagine if those of you that have kids, you have to teach your kids not to lie. They learn to lie without anyone ever giving them a lesson in it. They may never even witness anyone lying before they lie to you. That they didn't eat the cookie when they got cookie crumbs all over their face and on their hands. No one has to teach them not to lie. To lie. You have to teach them not to lie. You have to teach your kids to share and to consider other people, because people are born with the feeling that they're the center of the universe, that everything revolves around them, and nothing is off limits to them. And a lot of anarchists I see is that. They think, well, everyone else needs to follow the rules, but I don't have to. Well, anarchy is nobody follows the rule, and it's going to suck for everybody. No one's going to like it. And that one simple rule in the Garden of Eden, we couldn't keep that. And just don't blame it on Eve and Adam. Please. Chances are, if it had been any one of us, we'd have done the same thing. With or without Satan's help, we'd have done the same thing. The other thing, then, the Old Testament, 10 laws. 10 simple things, 10 commandments. How hard is 10 commandments? Well, how hard? Moses ended up writing the book of Leviticus and Deuteronomy to make sure people could understand 10 simple rules. Okay? That's human nature. I believe it was God inspired what he wrote in Leviticus and in Deuteronomy and elsewhere, but God tries to make it simple, and we have to make it complicated. Keep the Sabbath holy. Again, there's that word holy, sacred, set apart, consecrated. Do something different on the Sabbath. That is the one I have struggled with year after year since becoming a Christian, because you sit there and you go, how am I going to be a good person? Well, let's just go to the 10 Commandments. That's God bothered to put it in stone. Let's study that. And the first 3 concerns about God, how to no other gods before Him. Then about your parents, honor your mother and father. Don't lie, don't kill, don't steal, don't covet. And you think, oh, that's great. But how many people keep the Sabbath? I know there's certain religious sects, denominations that do that better than other denominations, but then I think they have to be careful that they don't sit there and look down on those that don't. It's still a commandment, though. Really. And I try and I struggle, and God, I believe God's given me grace and mercy over that topic, and I keep asking for, Lord, help me, teach me how we're going to do this. And the holy, just doing that. And then in the New Testament, Jesus brings it back down to 2. Love your God with all your heart, all your mind, and then love your neighbor as yourself. 2 things. Simple. Not to me. Not to most people. Christianity, in a nutshell, if God is love and we're supposed to be Christians, we're supposed to be loving people. And sadly, religion seems to have the opposite effect on people. They become unloving. They become harsh. You have to do this, or I'm better than you because I go to church. I go to church every Sunday. I go to the same church my grandparents and my parents went to. It's like, that is not Christianity. This verse has been really on me. It's in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3. I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled or tricked Eve with his subtlety, cunning, so your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Christ. Okay, don't be confused. It doesn't mean Christ is simple or being... There is a simplicity in salvation, in the message. What God, you have all these pages that we Christians have from the Old Testament and New Testament. And we have so many countless books of different people trying to explain just one of the books or one verse. I mean, the whole prayer of Jabez thing that just went through churches not too long ago is another example of how things just, the fads go through churches too. If you go to a church, I pray that you go to one that teaches the whole Bible, verse by verse, chapter by chapter, book by book. Nothing is left out. And that's where I go to a church that does that. I love that. I love if I miss the sermon, I can get online, I can download his the latest teaching and keep up with my Bible study with my congregation. And I can do my own research. But God keeps trying to make things simple for our sakes. You know, don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Here's 10 rules to go by, and everything should be okay. Jesus comes up with 2 rules. And we keep coming up with volumes and volumes of stuff to add to it when if there's a simplicity in Christ. You know, I believe in who he is, what he was, what he did, what he is now, and who he is today. I didn't come by that, sadly, from just a faith-based thing. I came from a head approach, a logical approach. To me, it was logical. And there's a need. Why Jesus Christ? Why there was a need that he had to come in the flesh? Why he had to die the way he died for us? And how the Old Testament points to that. So, anyway, I think I've carried on this topic. God is holy. And we need to understand what that means.